Madam Permanent Secretary, the CEO for RCI, my two dearest sisters, Excellencies, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, colleagues from the diplomatic and development communities, colleague heads of agencies from the United Nations system, their young friends who've come from colleges in Kigali, colleagues from the media, ladies and gentlemen, Waramuse. Yeah, it's a pleasure to join all of us today to celebrate the United Nations International Day for South-South Cooperation. As the CEO for RCI has affirmed, it is a moment to reaffirm the power of partnerships in shaping a more inclusive, innovative, and sustainable future for all. We gather at a time when the world faces unprecedented challenges, from climate change and food insecurity to mounting debt burden and a widening digital divide. These complex issues, among others, demand solutions that are locally rooted, globally connected, and collectively owned. This is the premise of South-South and triangular cooperation. What it means for all of us, dear friends, is that cooperation is no longer optional. It is essential. It is what allows countries to learn together, to adapt together, to co-create solutions, to share expertise, and to accelerate progress towards the SDGs. Yes, September 12th every year is celebrated as International Day for South-South Cooperation. But South-South Cooperation did not start because the UN General Assembly declared it on such a day. South-South Cooperation is as old as humanity itself. History tells us about human settlement and migration patterns from the beginning of time, both outward and return migration, bringing experiences and new knowledge in each of the communities we populate and settle in. The history of the great empires of Africa and the Middle East and Asia showed they traded significantly among themselves, sharing goods and knowledge as well as science. And the anti-colonial struggle is replete with how the rest of the continental Africa benefited from the experiences of Pan-Africanists from across the Caribbean, the North Americas, and Europe. Human progress, therefore, has been shaped by this interaction across cultures and geographies. So South-South cooperation is therefore about mutual support, practical solutions to contemporary problems, and local ownership. It's about turning homegrown ideas into shared lessons. And Rwanda, through the Rwanda Cooperation Initiative, has positioned itself as a hub for South-South knowledge exchange. I find this unique because the fact that you are a developing country does not mean you don't have anything to share. And I don't see why. Why wouldn't other African countries copy this? I was telling my dear sister Patricie that in the 1970s, Nigeria established the Technical Aid Corps and sent Nigerian experts all over the world, the global south, Asia, South America, Caribbean, many African countries. And that program still exists, but in a slightly modified form, because our experiences are similar. Our histories are similar. So there's a stronger connection in terms of what we go through that legitimizes that sharing of experiences. And so, as the CEO has mentioned, welcoming over 700 delegations from more than 70 countries has allowed Rwanda to showcase its own homegrown solutions and innovative approaches to digital governance, service delivery, and socio-economic transformation. I'll come back later to this point. And through these partnerships, Rwanda is not only sharing its experiences, but offering practical, technology-driven solutions to its peers. Many examples have been cited. The one I find fascinating among those that have been cited was about a visit by the judiciary of Jamaica, I think 18 months ago, to learn about case management, but also dispensation of justice, because a mentee of mine was head of UNDP in Jamaica at that time, and we worked together to bring a delegation led by the Chief Justice of Jamaica himself. So across the world, people are learning from each other and benefiting from each other. So what they showcase is that what Rwanda is doing, and what we hope that other African countries will copy, is to turn local innovation into global impact. And this is a model of what South-South and Triangular Cooperation can achieve when vision meets action. For the United Nations, South-South and Triangular Cooperation is more than a development modality. It is a strategic accelerator. And so working hand in hand with Rwanda Cooperation Initiative, we are supporting the scaling of these innovative practices of Rwanda through technical assistance and policy dialogue, partnering to document, package, and share Rwanda's homegrown solutions across the Global South, and facilitating knowledge exchanges that inspire cross-regional learning and evidence-based policymaking. So we stand ready with Rwanda in this journey, supporting initiatives that strengthen public service delivery, improve efficiency, and build inclusive systems like the digital solutions Rwanda is sharing with Eswatini and Guinea. But let me backtrack, because this approach has become imperative. It's become imperative because now we live in times that we are struggling to comprehend and understand the significant global challenges that we face, the uncertainties and convolutions that we see in our world today. So the approaches and systems that we took as settled matters, settled points of thought, are themselves in contestation today. So they are in contestation at the same time as leaders across the world in the Global South are struggling to drive the socio-economic transformations of their own societies and countries. And some of the ideas on the table for driving this socio-economic transformation has been ideas and thoughts and processes we thought were settled. That this was what other societies used and worked for them. And therefore, if you use them in your own context, they're going to work for you. So the challenge for us in the Global South, the challenge of South-South cooperation, is that the saying goes, never let a crisis go to waste. It is time to reinterrogate all these existing orthodoxies, all these existing concepts. Because even in the societies where we thought these are settled matters, the polarization is so deep in terms of the contestation of ideas that people are espousing and articulating perspectives of the world, of social organization, of political organizations that fly in the face of assumed notions, of even global understandings of what this means. So clearly for us, for Africa, one key area we now need to interrogate is the logic of governance and the logic of development. Because some of our colleagues, yes, those of us who are development actors, some of our colleagues are arguing that development is failing. And because development is failing, governance is also failing. And if we look at how far we have come as societies in Africa, the governance models that we've taken, and the governance model that often, because of our colonial history, has been largely shaped by the models by the metropole. And given their own socio-economic transformations, we believe that these were the models that make societies triumph and prosper. And these models now are in contestation even in the modern societies. And many people are asking, we've tried to adapt them in multiple ways. Is it time to go back to a reconceptualization, starting with national dialogic processes? Can we begin to rethink our societies why we are failing in the principles and concepts of we're applying in our national development, and what needs to change? How did our societies historically govern themselves? And what are the gaps in those governance arrangements? And what can we learn from them to address the kind of governing arrangements we need to construct today? So, when in our societies, when there's a problem, the formal forms of governance we know are often unable to address them. And we'll go to what we call the traditional forms of governance. What makes it traditional? Because it was in the past? Because it was before colonialism? Is that what makes traditional? But that's what people are comfortable with. So the key question for us is, what are the principles that should inform our governing arrangements? Because the principles are universal. They never change. It's about participation. It's about inclusion. It's about openness. It's about ensuring full participation. So whatever system works but has these principles, maybe it's time we begin to rethink all of those so we can then strengthen our accountabilities in our societies in ways that give us the kinds of results we want. Because we are in a hurry as Africa to transform. But even if our accountabilities don't allow us to hold people to account for the malfeasance, the wrongs, the corruption in government, why then can we say that systems are working for us? So these are the big questions we have to rethink. And this rethinking is also happening within the United Nations system. The UN was conceived to save mankind from the scourge of war, isn't it? How many African countries were present when the United Nations system was created in 1945? So I don't blame the African scholars who argue today that the UN is struggling to speak for the global south, that the UN is struggling to speak for Africa. So we have an amazing opportunity with the reforms of the UN that is happening now. The UN at 80. Member states who are here from Africa, from the global south, you have an amazing opportunity to contribute to this discourse about making the United Nations system relevant to Africa and speaking to our needs. But not just the United Nations system. You have an opportunity to make the international financial architecture relevant to the needs of Africa. Because international financial architecture was not designed for us. It was designed for the reconstruction of Europe. But the new threats are here. And so we have to reconstruct them to speak to our needs. That explains the underdevelopment, the dependency, the poverty, and the challenges we have. Because the resources we need to make change happen don't come in the quantity and the level, the depth at which you seek them. So that's your challenge as member states. The real South-South cooperation that our member states are stepping up and challenging these orthodoxies within the UN, outside the UN, in all the platforms, and saying, enough. Let's rethink what holds us together. And on that basis, let's reconstruct a new global agenda. That is the logic of the Pact for the Future that all of you signed, adopted as member states last year. So, Honorable Permanent Secretary, all dear friends, I think our theme for this year about new opportunities and innovation through South-South and triangular cooperation is a call to action on many fronts, not just here in Rwanda, as we celebrate Rwanda's experience. It's challenging us to move from commitments to results. Yes, next year, we will gather here again to celebrate South-South cooperation. But we'd like to hear many different and new stories about what our member states are doing, building from Rwanda's experience, but building on your global leadership to the G77 and other platforms where you come together to ask for this change. Because what it reminds us is that partnerships must work. They must scale what we learn, what is emerging, adapting them to our needs, and we need to deliver them at speed. Look across Africa today. Each of our societies, look at the number of protests on a daily basis. Protests by young people. We just saw Nepal a couple of days ago. We saw Kenya. Our youth are angry. They are angry at us, at our leadership. All of us are part of the problem in their view. Because we live in nice houses, we drive nice cars. So they think we're part of the problem, even when we're not in governance. So if there is a blowback, all of us will be impacted. So people are angry. And it's now on us to do it at scale. Because what scale does is that it gives a sense of hope. What we owe the youth of our societies today is hope. Because the problems are so multifaceted and protracted that they cannot be solved overnight. It's not instant coffee. But when they see a clear sense of hope, of efforts being made to address their issues, they are willing to be patient with us as their leaders. So as we mark this celebration, we need to reaffirm 3 commitments. To learn from each other, to value the wealth of knowledge within the global south. And part of learning from each other is also activating all the protocols we've signed through movement of peoples and goods and right of residence. So where we don't have human capacity is next door. Then our youth don't need to want to go to the global north because the opportunity is next door. Number two, to innovate together, leveraging technology, data, and collective problem solving. And three, it's about delivering results to ensure that cooperation translates into tangible benefits for citizens across Africa and beyond. At this point, I want to thank my dear sister Patricia and her team at RCI for co-organizing this event, but for your visionary leadership in taking up the mantle and leading it to higher levels. So Rwanda is now a hub of South-South knowledge exchange and collaboration. I would like to thank my colleagues from the United Nations system, the heads of agencies, because we have the same aspiration. We say that for those of us who work in the United Nations system, we don't have a country of origin. Our country of origin is a country in which we work. So we are Rwandan. The Rwandan aspiration and ideal. That's what drives our work in the UN system. That's the spirit of South-South cooperation. So not just my colleagues in the UN country team, colleagues in my office, the resident coordinator office, who've worked with colleagues at RCI in putting it together. Together we demonstrated the power of partnership in action. As we celebrate this day, the UN in Rwanda will continue to reaffirm its commitment to stand with Rwanda and its partners, to support knowledge sharing, and to play a catalytic role in translating cooperation into tangible benefits for citizens across Africa and the global south. Together to transform ideas into solutions, solutions into impact, and impact into lasting change. Together we can show that collaboration is not just a principle, but a pathway to a more just, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable future for the global south and beyond, leaving no one behind. Do remember this as I conclude. The future of the world is in Africa. Africa is the breadbasket of the world. Even as right now, as we speak, we continue to import a lot of food, but the trend is inexorable. It's reversing. It's the breadbasket of the world. But Africa is also the workforce of the world for the future. So the global progress, the progress we want to see in the rest of the world starts here in Africa in terms of the youth population, the expertise, and the skills. So we need to work together to create the Africa that the world needs. So our plea is our partners around the world, global north and elsewhere. We want you to unclench your fists so that we can have a handshake on the basis of solidarity and shared humanity. Murakoze cyane.